Okay, guys, welcome back to another episode. Today, we are getting some outdoor gardening work done. We have my mom's 70th birthday party next week on Friday, and there's a lot to get done around the house. I'm not going to push myself to make everything perfect because we have some actual work that contractors will need to come in for, like finishing the hood vent cover, plastering it, and a couple more things. But I am going to get the outside dialed. So come with me, I'll show you what we're getting into. Okay, we have taken some of the jasmine off of the outdoor shower to try and install this wire trellis. We did one already outside in the front for the queen's wreath, but now we're going to try to do this, which is the diamond pattern, because I know that jasmine is really good at climbing, and I have seen people do the diamond pattern and the jasmine grows in that pattern, which is a really nice and clean look. So I've heard this is a pain to try and figure out how to install, but we're gonna give it a shot. Okay, so if you can see, this corner point right here goes to here instead of across to the top corner point, which I think is what throws this thing off. Like, if you look at it this way, it's a bunch of squares. I think that's what throws everybody off. So I grabbed blue tape and we're just gonna tape it out so that it ends up looking like diamond patterns, but maybe it's not exactly how the directions say that it would be done. Because at the end of the day, I feel like the only thing that matters is that when the jasmine starts wrapping around, that it creates a uniform pattern. So we're going to try this out and I'm going to keep you posted because I feel like it's going to be helpful to show how we do this, since I've heard everyone on Instagram say that it's really hard to wrap your mind around and it's a pain in the neck to execute. So let's see. So what we've been doing is now we are going to try to follow this. In from here to here is 6 inches, and again from there to there. So the gaps
not quite 6.
are
5 and 5/8.
5 and 5/8, around about 6 inches. So I have a good feeling about it this time. Let's see.
Next.
Okay, so we started with.
First, we had to figure out 5 and 5/8 or 6 and 5/8.
There's been a little bit of marital drama over this. Okay, so as you can see, we first did the lines going from bottom left to top right. And now we're doing the opposite, right to left. And the measurement in between is 5 and 5/8.
If something
Almost
looks
6
crooked,
inches.
tell us in the comments.
Yeah. Oh, God. Actually, please don't. Just refrain. Update. Now we're going to get drilling. I'll show you guys what we use once we get started. We have a couple of options for hardware and wire widths. So once he decides what we're using, I will show you. Okay, so right here in the corners are our starting points. And for those, we are using these 1/4 inch screw eyes. These are more heavy duty. We're just using that in the corners as our anchoring points. And for the other end points, which would be like here, we are going to use these. And then for the crosshairs, like right here, we are going to use these to just, they won't drill into the wood. They'll just pinch the wires and hold those crossing points together. So these I ordered on Amazon. This is what they are. I will link them below. Okay, so I thought this was worth mentioning. This wire trellis kit, the one that we used in the front yard, that comes with these directions is meant for concrete, and this is not concrete. So the hardware for that wouldn't work. So we're using the wire from that kit with those little hardware pieces that I showed that are going to pinch these crossing points together, and then the screw eyes that we just picked up from Home Depot. And we weren't sure if it was going to work out the way we were hoping because of the width of the wood, but let me show you. He's screwed a couple in so far, and it's barely poking through. You can't even see it. So perfect. Okay, so we put these screw eyes on all of the endpoints, and now we're putting some in the middle, the same as the diagram on the directions, just to really anchor it in place. Okay, we finally finished. I'm going to say a couple of things. We didn't use those little crosshair holders. Instead, we said we could, so we could still use them, but instead we added screw eye every other one. I'll take a photo of this and pop it up on the screen and highlight where we put screw eyes to give you guys a better idea in case you plan on trying this. And then another thing that I would mention is that this is harder than it looks, and I would definitely suggest using blue tape and not doing it yourself. I would say grab a handy family member or your husband or even a friend and get some help for this project. And yeah, once I figured out what tools to hand him and when, it was a pretty smooth operation. Definitely the hardest part is taping it out, figuring out the shape, measuring to make sure that everything's the same distance apart. And then once you get it measured out and you're just threading wire, it's a pretty easy job, but it is time consuming. So anyway, it looks great. I think it's worth it, but definitely not a one-person job. Okay, I thought this was worth mentioning because honestly, I wondered, but this stuff that's growing on the jasmine, this is how it was attaching itself to the wood. It kind of would grow up and then this would start forming, which attached to the surface. So now that we have this up, it'll be interesting to see if it will follow this and then probably just attach to the wood, but thought that was worth mentioning. Now to the other side. Pissed. I am going to pot these two orange trees. They keep blowing over because it's windy and these pots are not heavy enough. It's been my experience that citrus trees are happiest in terracotta pots. I'm not sure why that is or if that's like a known thing, but that has been my experience. So I do not have any more right now of these big terracotta pots that I use that are out here with the topiaries. And even if I did, I think that these orange trees would take
a big pot like this, and there's not enough room after this last step to fit another pot like that. So I am going to take a chance, and I'm going to use these. They are faux wicker pots. They have this plastic lining in the bottom with holes for drainage, and they are super lightweight. So although I trust myself with the watering nowadays, so I don't really need the filler rock at the bottom. I know I mentioned in my other video, if I don't know how to care for certain plants, sometimes I will put a little bit of filler rock in the bottom, which just prevents from overwatering, because that is just as bad as underwatering. So if you overwater, it's not that big of a deal. The water goes to the bottom very quickly, and it sits in the rocks or drains out the bottom, so it prevents the soil from remaining super damp. It's just a little bit of a buffer so that you don't kill anything. But I am going to put rocks in the bottom of these. They are so lightweight. The trees keep blowing over as is, so I really want to weigh them down. And yeah, we'll see how it goes. I mean, I look at this more as like a fun therapeutic process. So if it doesn't work, no worries. I'll remove them, pick up some terracotta pots, maybe switch up the location. I would like to keep the orange trees. So if they start looking like they're not doing great, it'll be very easy to remove them from these pots because the opening is so wide. And even if they get a nice root ball going, these pots also, these terracotta pots also have a nice open mouth. So I'll just be able to set them in there comfortably without cutting up the root ball and having any trouble removing them from here. So that's my game plan for now. That's what I'm going to do out here. And then another thing I wanted to mention, I'll give you guys a little bit of a closer look here. I ended up putting rosemary in these pots because of the texture of rosemary. It sort of reminds me of like pine trees or something. I just thought that likely they would do fine out in direct sun. Out here, it's not right now, it's later in the afternoon, but for a majority of the day they get direct sun, and they hated it. I watered them every day, which I also don't think that they loved being watered every day. But I thought that as I started to kind of see them go downhill, I thought that I would buffer some of the heat by doing that. And only this back side of the rosemary, which was protected by this cinched part, survived. So we have a half dead rosemary and a totally cinched one on this side, which is a big bummer. I'm not giving up. This will actually be a pretty interesting trial and error process to take you guys along with, because it's summer in South Florida. It is super hot. For the last like 7 to 10 days, we've actually even had a heat advisory, and this is a direct sun area. So I'm going to give it a go, do some trial and error, and see what I can keep alive out here. This is the section that I baby the most. So I'm out here watering all of this every day. I'm constantly pruning it. This is the area that I baby. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what I can get to live out here and in super hot, direct heat, zone 10B, and what doesn't do great. So these are fairly little pots. It's not going to be expensive to swap things out if they're not doing great. But yeah, we'll have to go to the gardening store together and see if we can find something else to put in these pots and see how it goes. All right, let's get into it. Okay, so I'm always kind of using a different type of filler rock in the bottom of these pots. This is from Home Depot, and this is what I'm using this time. Okay, so that bag was already opened. There was only like this much left. And I just used a tiny bit. I think there's something like 2 or 3 inches in the bottom of those pots, and they're not super deep. So not much, just a little something to weigh them down, and that's it. Okay, so now that the rock's in there, I'm just setting this in here to measure, and I think that that's fine. So I don't need any soil under it. I can just center it in the pot like this and fill around it and on top of it. Okay, now I'm just going to push this down on the sides to secure the tree so it's centered in the pot. And then I'm going to fill the rest. Just give it a very gentle pat on the top. I'm going to leave it fairly loose. I want to allow these roots to have some wiggle room to really start growing outwards. So I don't want them to be packed too tight in there. Okay, and now that that's filled, I am just going to grab the watering can and give this a good water so that the water will actually settle the soil in more of like a natural way without me patting it down and prevent this top layer of soil from blowing off since it is windy out here. And then I'm just gonna rinse and repeat on that second tree and we're done. Okay, so while I'm refreshing a bit out here, I'm going to remove these rosemary. We're having my mom's 70th birthday party here in a couple of days and everyone's going to enter through the front door. So now is the time to spruce it up a little bit. I've had these by the pool for a couple of weeks. They were doing really well in the full sun. We had a really bad storm here 3 days ago, and there was a mini tornado that went through the backyard and threw all of our potted plants, except for the big terracotta lemon trees, into the pool. So these had some chlorine exposure, and now they're a little black on this side, but I think if I repot them and get them in some clean soil and give them a good water, they should do pretty good. But like I said, we're doing a little trial and error out here on the front porch. Summer here is no joke, so let's see. I think I'm going to remove those and pot these. But what I'm trying to figure out is whether or not to keep these pots, which gives a variety of 3 different pots out here. The terracotta pots, even though they're different sizes, they're the same style and color. So I consider that like one. So we have the terracotta pots. Now the wicker pots with the orange trees inside of them. And then these vintage concrete pots that's a little more Art Deco style. So what I can do is switch out this style for the smaller wicker pots, which I don't know, something about the wicker just feels a little more spring and summery. I think I like that better. It's just a little bit more cohesive. Okay, so let me do that. Also, I don't think that these concrete pots had drainage holes. Oh, they did have drainage holes, but for some reason water wasn't draining out of it. Maybe I packed them too tight. I'm not sure, but I'm going to go ahead and remove this. Okay. I don't think that I'm going to have a huge issue with wind with these, but just to be safe, I am going to put a little bit of rock at the bottom of these ones too before I pop them. These are gold dust Mercandia hybrid, full sun it says, so that's exactly what we need. A little bit more soil, I think. It's a little hard to get on the edges of that plant because it sits fairly low, doesn't have much height to it, sort of droopy. So I am filling up this pot and then pushing the soil onto the edges in a circle to leave an open hole in the middle to set this in. Yeah, then I don't have to do so much filling since it's a little hard to maneuver around the foliage on this one. I see we have some kind of bonus plant growing inside here. So I'm going to pull that out. Hopefully that's the whole root system. If not, that's going to grow back, but I'll keep an eye on it. taking the same approach on this one, filling it up with much more soil than I typically would, pushing it on the edges to create a hole in the middle and prevent having to fill so much around the plant. So we don't have to do too much maneuvering. I have the hose going on our baby palm trees. They haven't been doing great because, again, it's so hot. So the sprinkler schedule just doesn't run long enough for them to get adequate watering. So I have the hose going on them for right now. So I'm going to clean up these hibiscus a little bit. When you have a stem that's super dead like these were, you want to clip them down far enough that you can see a little bit of the color inside of the stem come back. Either you can see the core of the stem, which you'll know when you clip it. Sometimes when you clip it, if it's still dead, the very center of the stem looks like a hollow hole. That's no good. You need to clip further down. You'll either see that core come back, or sometimes you'll even see the inside of the stem has a slight green hue or has some kind of pigmentation that comes back, and that's perfect. That's where you know that the stem is live. If you don't trim it down far enough, then you won't get any regrowth on it. If you guys can see, I have 6 of these spiky guys. I think these might even be Florida natives. You sure do see them everywhere. I really am not a huge fan of them, to be honest. I chose them because there were certain requirements that for a new build the city required for landscaping, like X amount of trees, X amount of bushes, a certain amount of native plants versus foreign plants. And I don't remember the exact requirement, but I threw these in last minute because otherwise we weren't going to pass our landscaping plan. But I am not a huge fan of them. They're just okay. They really don't do much. I am not in love with the shape, and they're not flowering. They do have one flower that comes up every now and then. Okay, I figured that this would give you guys a better idea. If you see here, these will produce one flower, and then they produce these things that look like little like tomatoes or peppers or something, and they're just really unattractive. So I am looking to remove these now that we have passed our landscaping plan and we have our certificate of occupancy, and put something else here instead. If you happen to know good plants for zone 10B and have any good ideas, please comment them below. I'm just in the very beginning stages of researching this again and seeing if I can find something. I was even thinking there is a certain bougainvillea plant that stays more of a bush size and isn't as much of a climber. It has much softer, droopy leaves, and the flowers are bigger. I had some in white and a lavender color, like a pinkish lavender color that was really pretty. I was thinking maybe to put white bougainvillea in here, since they do like a lot of sun and not a ton of water. But again, I haven't even started researching yet. I just know that I want these removed. So if you can think of anything, please let me know. I would love some feedback. Okay, we have completed one side of our wire trellis and we have mapped out the other side. We ran out of wire. This thin wire we ordered on Amazon, actually with a kit that's meant to hang string lights. And the thin wire has a vinyl coating on it. So it's sort of like a plasticky coating that is protective and prevents it from rusting, which is super important for us because we're on the water and it's salt water. So things corrode very quickly. Anyway, we're waiting for the wire to come. I think it's supposed to come tonight. So tomorrow I will have Hunter help me with the second side to get that done before my mom's birthday. But for now, I'm going to fix this jasmine to the wire trellis. I'm hoping I'm not going to have to cut it back too much, but these sections that have really woven themselves together, it's a very, very tight weave they've put themselves in, and I feel they've already hardened. So the new whips that these produce will be like super soft and malleable like they are here. And then once they've really established and the whips start growing out and have been there for a while, they turn into a much woodier type of stem. So sections like this, I'm going to have to cut back, which is a shame because they're so pretty. But in order for them to really attach to the wire trellis properly, I'm going to have to cut them back. And really, it'll be better for the plant long term anyway, because with storms and hurricanes and things, this will be super sturdy. I'm going to start cutting them back, and then the little pieces that I can attach to the wire, I'm going to use this. I've had this for a long time. I think it's from Home Depot. I bought it to help train the bulbs that I bought during Christmas season to the little sticks because they were growing up so tall they were flopping over. These are just plant twist ties. I'm going to tie it to the wire trellis in several areas. This is what we have so far. I use the twist ties to attach the jasmine to the wire trellis. The extra wire for the second side just got delivered. So tomorrow when my husband gets off work, we will finish up that side, and I am going to call it for today. Okay, my whole body is sore. So I'm going to tell you what I did, but I'm not moving these pots. I'm going to make my husband do it. Okay, so I have 2 of these hibiscus trees. I'm going to center them up here. I did put like 2 inches of that white rock at the bottom, and then I used the natural organic soil. So these 2 will go here. I've had them sitting up here unpotted, just sitting in the pot but not properly potted for like 2 weeks, and they love it here. So sometimes I do that just because I'm lazy, but it also serves a purpose. Before you pot something, it just makes it so heavy once it's potted with rocks and soil in it. If you just kind of faux pot it, you can move things around and see where they're happy before you commit. So here we'll have 2 hibiscus, and then on the ends we have 2 planters that are pedestal style planters. So the planter itself sits up quite high. And then we have the pink corally color foxgloves. I'm waiting for the leaf blower to charge up so I can give it a quick clean. Landscapers come tomorrow, so I was really pushing to get this all done today so that I kind of have a cleaning crew behind me, which is lovely. And then the remaining wire trellis says it's out for delivery right now. It was supposed to get delivered last night, so fingers crossed that it gets delivered. And then my husband can help me for like 45 minutes, just string that together, move 3 potted plants, and the outside is ready for my mom's birthday. So now I am going to head inside before I clean up and throw together some simple arrangements. I usually do the same flowers in my bathroom and bedroom. They're sort of like the signature flowers of the house, which are white orchids. I currently have some in vases, which are super dead in the room. So I'm going to show you removing them, my trick to sterilize the vases, which is super important before you put fresh flowers in, and throw together some simple arrangements. Let's go. Okay, so I'm in the kitchen. I have some arrangements that I am going to throw out, and then I'm just going to show you guys really quick how I disinfect the vases when I'm going to put fresh flowers inside, because if you have a buildup of bacteria inside of the vases from old flowers, it will make your new flowers die very quickly. I feel like this happens to a lot of people and they don't know why it's happening. That could very well be the case. It's just you need to sterilize the inside of the vase. So these white orchids, I like to keep them in our bedroom and bathroom. They're my favorite. They're very simple, and I like that. I used to do tons of very elaborate flower arrangements, especially when we were in the rental house, and I would use flower foam or chicken wire and have many different, filler flowers and bigger flowers and really mix a lot of things together. But right now I've really been loving mono florals, which is just a fancy way of saying just one type of flower, simple arrangements. I feel like it's because now that we're in the new house, there's a lot more architectural detail, there's a lot more materials and decor. It's a bigger space, and something about having those like simple arrangements that are the same color in multiple areas feels like it's really pulling the space together nicely. So things are forever changing. That's what I'm into right now. So that's what I'm going to do. There's a little ring around here that you can probably see. I am going to first give that a good scrub. So just a little bit of dish soap, whatever dish soap you have is fine. We don't use Dawn or anything like that in this house. Everything's non-toxic. So either Branch Basics, that is a lavender dish soap that I buy off Amazon, which will be in the Amazon storefront. If I'm out of anything, I even like wipe down the counters with vinegar spray, which I have here. But whatever you have is fine. Really, this step is just to get out that buildup, like any physical debris out of there. So that's it. Nothing crazy. I'm just going to wash out all of these vases, scrubbing the inside to get out physical debris, and then I'll show you the next step. One thing I will mention is that when I'm rinsing, after I've scrubbed, when I'm rinsing these out, I do use really hot water. I feel like it's just adds a little bit more sterilization. So however hot you can get the water while not burning your hands, like whatever is tolerable, do that, because I do think it helps. Okay, and then for the last step, this is bleach. Be careful, because the amount of clothes that I've ruined with just like a little spot of bleach that I didn't know got on me. And then I go to wash my clothes, a couple days later, whenever you get to it, and you have a bleach mark. So I like putting it in something like this just because I feel like I have a little bit more control over like splashes and splatters. But you're just going to put a little bit in each base. Let it sit for 10 to 20 seconds in each vase. You want to kind of like swirl it once or twice just to coat the edges. And then, yeah, let it sit for 10 or 20 seconds. That should be fine. It's sterilized. Give it a really thorough rinse. And then immediately you can put fresh water and flowers in the vase and you're good to go. Okay, so these two are going to be for our master nightstands, and this is going to be for the master bathroom. So all of these will be white orchids. And then I have these pink peonies that I'm going to put in here for the powder bathroom. I feel like it's going to be a really nice pop of color against the dark brown walls. And for my mom's birthday this weekend, it's like a tropical theme. So we're going to have like colorful orchids and birds of paradise and big green elephant ears and things like that. So I feel like that will pull in the same color palette that we will have going on in the common areas. So all you need is a sharp pair of scissors. This is nothing crazy, but I do sort of use the same method every time, which is I'm going to work on one vase at a time. I basically just pull out a stem and I'm going to figure out the length. And then I'm going to use one stem as sort of a measure, like a ruler, to measure my cuts on all the rest of the stems as I'm building it up. So that will just keep everything cohesive. I'm just going to cut them diagonally at the bottom, just a tiny bit. This is just to make the end of the stem fresh since they're already a good length. And then you don't want anything below the water line. So if I put it in here and fill it up with water, this one's okay. But on any of the stems that there's flowers down the stem in here, I'm going to pluck those off. Like this one, you can see when I put it in, there's a flower under here. I'm just going to pluck that off. And then I'm going to do one bunch per vase. So all of this, one of these per vase. It's getting a little bit full around the rim. So some of these, I'm just plucking one flower off just to give a little bit more room to fit more stems. I'm going to fill with cool water. And then I don't fill up the water too high. Like this is fine. And orchids specifically really thrive in fresh water. These will last easily 2 weeks if you keep the water fresh. So every 2 or 3 days, I'm not super anal about it, but I will just dump out the water and refill it. And like I said, I don't fill it up that high in the vase, but having a really simple arrangement like this, no chicken wire, no floral foam, it's really easy to just give it a refresh. And the orchids look great for so long if you just keep them in fresh water. These might need to be cut down more, but maybe not. Let's see. So I'm going to measure, see, I kind of like them long like that. I'll cut off like a 1/4 inch. And then again, pluck the bottom flower if you need. These orchids, they really are just so easy to deal with. They last a long time. They look great. They naturally stand up upright. They're like really perky. So you don't really need anything to shape them. And they're just like so sculptural. If you want something easy and you don't want to have to fuss with it, for spring and summer, I just love the white orchids. They're so cool. Orchids come in so many different colors. You can buy these ones where the whole stem is lined with like smaller flowers, or you can buy stems that just have like 1 or 2 really big flowers. And like I said, they come in so many different color variations. If I ever see orchids at like Trader Joe's or Whole Foods, I don't go to Trader Joe's that often, so it's hard for me to gauge. Like if I go to Trader Joe's, it's just for flowers. I'm in and out, so I don't even walk around the whole store. And I don't go to Trader Joe's that often, but I've never seen orchids at Trader Joe's, and I think I've seen them at Whole Foods, but not very often. If you go to a wholesale florist, that's where these are from. They always have orchids every single time I go in there. They have orchids in some kind of color. And another like wholesale flower place that you could go where you don't need like a tax ID is it's not Living Green. It's in Davie. It's a really good flower shop. If I don't go to Full Pot, which is the proper wholesale florist where you need a tax ID, then I go to this other place that's in Davie, which is not far from me. And it's really good. You can even buy flowers by the stem, which really allows you to make elaborate arrangements without having to buy bunches of each type of flower or filler that you want, which is a great way to go. And they will also make you arrangements if you call in ahead of time. They have a big cooler that you can walk through. I will leave that flower shop that's like open to the public down below. Whatever flowers you're in the mood for, if you go to that place in Davie, 9 times out of 10, they will have exactly what you're looking for. Again, cool water. There are some flowers that do better with room temp water or like lukewarm water. I typically just do cool water, but if you wanted to be proper and do the right thing for the specific variety that you have, you can always get online and check. Sometimes you get online and there's some really useful tips. If there's a variety that's like your favorite that you get every season and you really want to make it last, I would suggest that. If it's something you buy often, look online and see if there's something specific that you can do. Like I can't remember exactly, but I know like Martha Stewart, for example, has some insane, it was insane to me. It blew my mind. Tip for hydrangea stems. They die so fast. Every time I've bought them, they're dead in like 3 days, 4 days max. And she was like, oh yeah, if you just clip the end, you give it a little trim, you roll it in like some kind of powder that you buy that's for like cooking from the store, that they'll last 2 weeks. So random things like that, check online. So I like to measure like this, holding the stem down past the counter so that you can see where the vase ends will be where you'll clip the stem. So like right about there. Then I'm going to pluck the leaf so that it's not in the water. And then I'm just going to test like that. I'm going to take a little bit more off. This length looks good to me. So now what I'm going to do is remove this stem and I'm going to use that as a measurement. So like this, same leaf off. These are the same height. I'm just going to continue to use that first stem as my ruler. And actually, now that these are in here, I'd like them to sit a little bit lower. But now that they're all the same length, it's an easy fix. You just grab them like this and then take the same amount off of all of them since they're already the same length. I find that when you clip flowers so that they're quite low in a vase, they sit much closer together and look much more full like that. And now just a couple of these leaves are not quite at the water line, but just to be safe. And again, cool water, and that's it. Okay, guys, if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next week for another video. Bye.